I want you to picture for a moment exactly what your life would look like if you were a millionaire. The truth is, you would have a lot of the same concerns, consistently working hard to grow as a person and develop fruitful, loving relationships all around you. Your greatest concern in life would still be your health and the health of those around you. There would be one main difference though, and it's an important one. You would no longer have to worry about money. You would have the freedom to do what you wanted, when you wanted. You would have control. Financial freedom is the freedom to be able to make choices. The choices about what you do with your most precious resource, your time, who you spend it with, and where and what you do with it. I want you to open yourself up as we begin to talk about what it takes to become rich. Traders are often very concerned with how much money they can make and how quickly they can make it. And each day and each trading session is approached as almost the improbable or impossible. The reason I want to share this formula with you is because it's very important to have the correct mindset, the mindset of an investor. And it's important to focus on this formula for the bigger picture. And this is going to help you to be able to execute, which is what you need to do in order to achieve your goals. You need to be able to execute. So let's take a look. Starting with a $3,000 balance, how do you get there? How do you achieve your goals? Where are you starting from? If you're starting with just a $3,000 balance today, and you are committing to making for the next 5 years, regularly, yearly, another $3,000 deposit, what is that? Like $260 or so a month. Go ahead and take a look, and the rate of return. You know, holding Bitcoin, what do you think you could do? What do you think you could achieve yearly? Now we know historically the average return of Bitcoin, yearly return of Bitcoin is something around 200%. Right? But that's including when price started going from a penny and then to $1. You know, what happens if you take out and use from 2012 to today? I think the average rate of return annually is something closer to about 120%. I would like to see that. I would like to know actually. Take a look at some of these numbers. This just happens to be the first choice on DuckDuckGo for Bitcoin average yearly return. And it's 2017, 1300, 2020, 300, 2019, 87, and 2018, 72. These two cancel each other out. You're looking over 4 years, 1600 divided by 4. You're looking at 400% a year. There you go. Mean annual return, 400%. Absolutely astonishingly. I mean, and then I went over here and looked at this Reddit thread, and they're showing the percent change for every year into Bitcoin. It's a couple of down years. 2022, right? Good chance it's a down year as well. You know, that's what I'm expecting. Not being invested, you know, whether that's worth it to you during these bear market years, you could have a significant change in your overall accumulation. That's for some more advanced stuff. So you can see, even if we did experience something like drastically diminishing returns, you know, instead of 400% over the last 4 years, maybe we're looking something forward at like 200%. But even if we only get 70%, what happens if you use something realistic? What happens if you use something like a 30% return over the next 5 years in Bitcoin? You're looking at taking a total deposit over 5 years, $18,000. And growing your account to $46,000. That's only over a 5-year period. But it's also with a 30% return. I think, well, I personally expect over a 70% return annually in Bitcoin over the next, 10 years? Absolutely. So let's take a look at that. Let's make that 10 years, 70%. I think underestimating greatly over there. We'll see. We don't know. I think it's safe. I think it's safe to work out my plan using 70% expected return annually in Bitcoin over the next 10 years. And then you're taking that $33,000, you're turning it into $2 million. That $2 million is comfortable. You could basically buy whatever you want, whenever you need it. You know, really very comfortable. But the thing is, when I first started doing this, I did this with 11 years. It was an 11-year plan with 3 halving events. And if you really want to plan this out correctly, starting today with $3,000, you could go ahead over the next 11 years, expect to have 3 more halving events. Next one, you know, it's every 210,000 blocks. Next one, you know, estimated 2024, 2028, 2032. But the thing is the bull market happens the year after the halving. So you're going to want to make this a 12-year plan, 70% annual return. And now you're looking, you know, total deposits over those 12 years, $39,000, $3,000 a year, you're committing to this plan, to your investment plan. And then you're looking at, $5 million if we hit our expected 70%. We don't, anything can happen. Understand your risk and what your risk is before you make any investment. And do not invest any more than you could afford to lose. But make sure you make calculated risks. Is this a calculated risk? Now, if there was just an 85% annual return in Bitcoin over the next 12 years, you would be looking at something, $15 million. That's, from here on up, you go on, borderline ridiculous for a 12-year plan. 70%, 12 years, next 3 halvings, you're starting today, $5 million is rich. $2 million, you're definitely comfortable, no question about that. But $5 million, I would say that it's a great plan to have in place. I think it's foundational, fundamental, that anyone beginning before anything else should have this plan in place. And then you could go ahead and leverage different investments. And that's why it's important to focus on this formula. It'll help give you the proper perspective of what it is you're looking to achieve for a longer term. And it's going to help give you the discipline you need to stick to the plan, because execution is everything. Let's start this off. Mic check, mic check. What's going on, everyone? Good morning. Happy Monday. Big shout out to Brooke and her son, CTM, all day long. CTM family, Tom. That's it right here. Doing what we do each and every day to do what we can to stay laser focused and on the right side of the most important trade that matters. I hope you all had a good weekend. Ready for the week ahead. Some people said that they slept with one eye open last night. I think for many, last night was a very, very comfortable night's sleep. As it should be. I was looking at the description this morning from Friday's video, right? Friday was a lot different of a situation. We were in this descending wedge, and I was talking about there's a lot of fear in the market out there. There's a lot of fear, but what's going on is you're seeing people selling who are new to Bitcoin, who bought over the last 6 months, and you're seeing the larger wallets, they're accumulating over here. And I was just trying to help everyone stay calm and stay focused, understanding where we are in the cycle, right? Looking good over here. Since then, we've broken out of that descending wedge and we have come out, the bulls are getting warmed up. It looks like they're starting to run. Is it going to be quick and is it going to be sharp? We're not going to go there right now. What about this angle? We'll talk about that in a second. Let's get going over here, CTM. By the way, how important is it to have a plan and execute it? By the way, if the music is too loud or you can't hear the music and you can't, this might not be for you, and if you're new here though, sincerely welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. It is good that you're here. Take a moment, subscribe to the channel, right? You have just stumbled across, for whatever reason, an oasis on the internet. Stay here. In the description below is a Telegram channel. You get alerted whenever we go live. Now, you have to here's a little bit different. It's not sensational. We're really working out a plan. We're making sure that we stay focused on it. Does it help having each and every day the intro laying out that plan for you? Now, some people aren't starting with $3,000, right? Some people are starting with a few $100,000. Some people have already created way more than that over the last year and a half following CTM. A lot of people have, right? But if you're starting from nothing today, right? And if you don't have $3,000 to start with and you're listening to this, you're in the right place. You need to, live within your means. If that means brewing all your coffee, I brew all my coffee. If that means brewing your coffee to save money, to stack sats each and every day, that's what you got to do. By the way, if you saw the tweet this morning, there's no victory lap to be had. First of all, we're still uncertain and unclear. What do I mean by that? We have not broken the most important trend line in crypto yet. And we all know that once we do, then things are a lot more clear. Momentum has certainly returned. And at that point, there's a good chance we could say that we feel very comfortable that the low is in for mid-cycle. Once we break that most important trend line in crypto. Right now, things are still unclear. Now, granted, they're a lot clearer than they were just a few days ago because we broke outside to the upside of this descending wedge, right? we have our first repair in right over here. This is the 28th of June, thereabouts, right? That was the first time CTM from this pullback said, all right, that's the first line of repair. That trade's still active. Then you have the breakout of the descending wedge, right? What's next? Let's take a look at it. Let's dive in. Let's focus on the technicals before we do. Before we do, CTM, collective modeling. Big shout out to Ian. Big shout out to Ted and Ted's artwork over here. This is absolutely beautiful over here. You're going to see tomorrow, if these gains hold, a big shoot up over here. And then all of a sudden, it becomes clear for a lot of people of what's happening over here and why we've been working on what we've been working on, right? It's a lot easier to see. It's hard keeping that, how do you say, that calmness, that collectiveness, when the bullets are raining down, when you're in the midst of the battle, right? But, it will be remembered. It will be remembered at the peak of 2021 bull market, those that were right and those that held firm, that's for sure, right? Let's take a look at the bullish case for Bitcoin before we look at the bearish case, and we need to update the bearish case for Bitcoin. We need to take a look about what's next because the head and shoulders has failed, right? Paging Dr. Michael Berry. That guy is on the wrong side of trades for the longest time ever. That's who he is. But we said that as he called that out. There's the head and shoulders. There's the break of the neckline. And you can see that price is now trading back above it. It's a failed head and shoulders. We were looking at a projective measured run down to 4,000 if you thought that was a head and shoulders. I mean, look, you had to watch it. It's there, right? But what happens next? What's the bearish case for Bitcoin now, right? Because this is a failed breakdown. If you're looking, so look, it's still pretty strong. The next thing we're looking at over here is a retest of the most important trend line in crypto. Let me make that a little bit dark. We're coming towards that line. Now, whether it's a straight up move to it or whether or not we pull back down, we'll look at the bullish case in a second, and I'm going to show you the angle of the trend line that we're coming out of over here. But the bears have the opportunity, and we talked about this way before it unfolded. We're back in the descending wedge. I was talking to you about what would happen up here. And now that we're working our way towards up there, this is the bear's opportunity to defend as you come to the most important trend line. If I was a bear, and I let you all know, what I would have been doing, we've been lightening up on the breakout, and I showed you that perfect break. There's a lot of people today, yesterday across the internet, the interweb, and all of a sudden they're coming out with like great confidence. But where were they? All of a sudden now everyone's an expert, but there were very few who held firm. There were very few who understood what was going on. Let it be remembered, right? So, we talked about and we gave on Twitter the breakout of this descending wedge, right? Do you remember how I lined that up? I do it differently. I do everything differently, right? But I didn't use the top of the wick. I used the bodies over here. And I showed you this on Twitter, and I gave a tutorial of why. There was the other touch over there. Again, not to the wick, to the body over there. You had the breakout, the retest, and then the resumption off. Does this trend line hold? The angle of this, I don't know if this holds or not. There's a good chance that we have to bring it back like this, or I don't know. But right now, this is definitely the two touches over here and this angle drawn in well before this, upburst over here. So far it's holding. We'll keep watching it. That's neither here nor there, right? Whether or not that holds or not. But it's in right now, and we'll continue watching it. The bears are coming up towards this line, and over there they have the opportunity to defend. What about horizontal resistance? They actually coincides this time. I thought it was coming in a little lower, and I was going to say, well, I'm not so much worried about the horizontal resistance as I am about the most important trend line in crypto. We'll see what the bears do once we come into the most important trend line in crypto. If they defend and defend strong, right, then their case becomes a lot stronger. If they lose this skirmish over here, notice the term, the Freudian, the skirmish. I believe it's going to be nothing more than a skirmish, that the bulls are going to be victorious as they come into that line. But it's the bears' opportunity. That's the last stand of the bears here, mid-cycle. Let's see what they do and how they do it. So we're just going to keep this highlighted over here, and everyone knows what we're looking for next.
and that is for a move into the most important trend line in crypto and to see whether or not the bears defend. Now, this angle happens to be very steep. When I drew in these, this was before when we were inside the descending wedge. I drew in that yellow line and I drew in that yellow line. Now, obviously I meant it, right? But I didn't expect price really to come off that far and steep. And whether or not in hindsight this is going to look anything remotely like where I have no idea. Maybe we get lucky, maybe something different unfold. Maybe the bears hold over here and we come back down and make lower lows. I mean, we will be aware of the possibility of that happening and what to do if that occurs. But today, the bulls get to stand strong and deservedly so, right? They fought hard. What we saw over here is a rounding top, right? 3 months. And we were wondering if we have a rounding bottom. That was our base case. Now, there were people out there, people like Jesse, and rightfully so, aware of where we were exactly in the cycle and wondering if we had that capitulation and then come up. But then there were also a lot of people out there, and all the chatter was that before we go up, we need to have some type of capitulation, and that's not, I mean, we were aware of it could happen, but everyone was an expert, but no one was. And there we are. All right, what else are we looking at? So that's the bullish and bearish case for Bitcoin. This, do you remember this when I put this out? This was June 28th. That was actually on the day that we broke out of the first repair. And the reason I put out that video was because look at the thumbnail. Like Bitcoin is bad for the environment. And then they were going to peel that off. And like all of a sudden, Jack was going to let Elon know, no, this is ESG approved. This is all good. And then was that going to be the narrative that takes Bitcoin to its new all-time highs? We were laying that out in advance. That was 3 weeks ago. And the only reason I streamed this on the channel so we could look back in the future and be like, look, we were all over it. And not just over here. If you look at what we were doing the last week, right? Risk is to the upside. The bull of all bulls getting ready to run. And then when things were dark, letting everyone know the bulls will see new all-time highs this cycle, right? And that's not what was happening the prior 6 weeks, 2 months before that, right? It was just at the right time, at the right place. If you're not subscribed to the channel, help us get to 100,000 subscribers. Help us get to 200, help us get to 500,000 subscribers. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We go live every Monday through Friday at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, a half hour before the equity markets open up. Listen, replay crew. Big shout out to everyone watching on the replay today. I am so glad that you are here. We are looking at this chart over here. I showed it to you last week, and you were looking at from Bitcoin from the halving event, right? Up until where we are. This is on the 22nd, up until where we are today. Obviously, we spiked out of here, right? But look what we were projecting ahead of time, right? Look, it's all there, right? Now, listen, John, I'll come back to that. John, thank you, first of all, but I'll come back to that in one moment, John. Look, we're looking at from the halving to here, Bitcoin 250% mid-cycle. Why it's important is because if you look back right before price in 2017 broke what was then the most important trend line in crypto, mid-cycle, you saw price also having a 250% gain. Now, this happened to do a 10x from here, or close to 18, 19x. I just went from a 10x to 18, 19x, right? What is that? All right, this is price trading at 23,000. We went to 19,400, 19,600, approximately a 10x. Maybe it's a 9x, whatever. Is that possible right now, right? If we look at what's going on right now, is it possible that we see another 10x over here, that we see price trade between 250,000, 320,000, right? Now, let it be known that I never wavered. My price prediction, not only did I not waver, I went ahead and make sure my price prediction 2 weeks ago, letting everyone know it has not changed at all. Because all of a sudden, the numbers started going, people capitulated, right? Everyone who was, people capitulated everywhere. Not here, I felt confident and strong of where we are. And listen, is that possible? Are we going to see that? It's happened before. We don't know that it's going to happen again. But those that are underestimating, here's why you should not be. And if we look at what's happening, it continues to be price averaging the past 2 cycles. We have a couple of, let's say, dates to watch for in the future, right? And in blue over here, this is August the 21st, August the 17th, 2021. That's not when price breaks the most important trend line in crypto. This is if you were using an average of the previous 2 cycles in the length of their consolidation. By the time we reached August the 17th, you would see price making a new all-time high. Now, obviously, that's a lot of room to cover, and I sincerely doubt that's going to happen. I mean, it's Bitcoin and anything's possible, right? Michael Saylor, all your models are broken if all of a sudden a flood of money from somewhere comes in, right? All your models are broken to the downside. That's what I felt like out there. Everyone thought that like the models were broken to the downside. We'll see, you know, like a weed in the wind. Everyone changes their views very quickly. Now, over here, when we look at the end of October, that would be if Bitcoin tracking the 2013 bull market from where it made the first wave. If this is a first wave of the 2021 cycle, how many days it took to break to that new all-time high. I think, and I still think it's somewhere between these two. We'll keep watching. We'll keep monitoring. Nevertheless, Bitcoin looking very healthy. And the reason I bring this up today for you is because if we do have a 10x from where we are right now, right, what would happen if you're starting with, and when I say $3,000, I'm just using that as an example to help people starting from the bottom rung, right? I told you 3 halving events, 12 years, right? For me, and from when I started this strategy, I only have 2 more halving events left, right? That's awesome. You know, if you're starting today, you could still just do 12 years and 3 halving events. Those 12 years are going to be here before you know it. You can't stop the time, right? It's a question of whether or not you're making decisions today so that 12 years from now, you're in a position of power and a position of strength, whether or not you've executed and reached your goals, or if you're going to still be out there going from one place to another and just like starting a new strategy every other. You got to have a plan in place. This one is foundational. What happens if we have a 10x from here, though, or a 15x? I believe this cycle outperforms the previous cycle. That's my base case, is that we're not seeing diminishing returns, right? And if we do, I hope that we get to say, you know, mission accomplished, 140,000. However, that will not be a reason to celebrate even then. Just like today is definitely not a reason to celebrate. We're underneath the most important trend line in crypto. Things are still unclear. 140,000 mission accomplished, great, but still laser focused, looking for that cycle peak and making sure to ride and stay on the bull of all bulls, right? Now, let's take a look at if we had a 10x, right? Let's just take a look at a 10x over here over the next year, and you were starting with that $3,000 today. You're not adding any deposits, right? And then all of a sudden, you know, that's a big difference between starting year 1 and, you know, with $3,000 and starting year 2 with $33,000. You're going to reach your goals a lot quicker, or your end goal is going to be a lot greater. Now, by the way, if you're able to just, you know, over the next 3 months, continue to add that other $3,000 deposit, you know, over these next, I don't know when the bull is going to peak, but call it 2021, that's a significant difference as well. So as other people out there are letting you know, listen, you know, lengthening cycles, diminishing returns, it could happen, anything's possible, it's the markets, we're watching for it, we're wearing it. But what it does is it tells a lot of people that there is no sense of urgency to get a plan in place. Like there's no rush. We're looking at lengthening cycles and diminishing returns. Take your time. At the end, we all get there. No, look, it's a lot different, or it was a lot different for me than by looking at the cycle, by looking at the model and saying, listen, you know, I think, you know, this is the time to accumulate and position in because we're going to go into a massive bull run over here. If I was talking about in 2021 only seeing $20,000, well, then there was no urgency over here to position it ahead of the halving event, right? The only way that you would have that urgency is if you understood the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin and what happens after the halving event. right? There are 3 phases. There's a bull market phase, there's a bear market phase, and an accumulation phase. It so happens that that bull market phase always occurs first, and it always occurs after the halving event, right? Now, maybe this time's different, right? But like playing it like that or viewing it like that, that's kept you behind. You want to get ahead. You're looking to do legendary things, right? You're looking to create generational wealth. How do you get there? You have to make calculated risks. You have to understand that there are absolutely there are great risks out there. You could lose all of your money. You have to be thoughtful about what you're doing. You have to be very calculated. All right. I just want to make sure everyone sticks on the plan at hand. By the way, if there's a 15x from where we are, entirely possible. You're looking at, can you imagine instead of starting off at $3,000 year one, you're starting off at $100,000, right? And then you're looking at 12 years with a 70% return, right? I mean, what are you doing? You got to today sit down and have a talk with yourself and make sure you understand why you want to have a plan in place. You have to understand what that plan is. You have to understand what will happen if things work out. You don't know if we're going to have a 70% return over the next 12 years. No one knows that, right? But I'm not looking for a 70% return for the remainder of 2021. I'm looking for something massively higher, and I don't think it's going to be a 5x. Right? If it's a 10x, that means that, we matched last cycle. The volatility seems to be much greater than last cycle. There's a strong possibility it's greater than last cycle. I want to make sure that I'm positioned for that because the risk is where? It's to the upside. The risk is to the upside. Where do we have that? It was just put out, recently. Boom. Bitcoin 1 week ago. The risk is to the upside. All right. So there we are. And where we are today. About 20 minutes in, covering it massively of where we need to be today. Is there anything else we want to take a look at? I think we got it. I think we nailed it. I'm going to play some that. Listen, if you're watching at work today, if you got that's the heart of the session right there. Nevertheless, I'm going to play some Honeymoon and just go over and see what's going on with all of you and just have some fun with you all and see if we look at anything else. So let me start over there and get some Honeymoon going this morning. CTM. There we go. Lots of them. Oh, and we're going to get back to you, John. DJ, good question. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Michael, thanks, brother. We'll help you out in 1 second. You got to be careful with that, buddy. There's a whole. No, Brent, I could talk because I have a history every day telling us where we were exactly and why. I held firm, brother. I held firm. I'm not changing my tune. Wes. What's up, Joe? don't know if Ben's right or wrong. Ben could be very right. Ben's putting out, the best he could all the time. Brother. Max. Brother. Thanks for smashing that like button. Brad, this match on Monday, we're getting ready. She'll be back soon. Bull of all bulls. Getting ready to run over here. John, listen, rip your face off. It's going to be quick and it's going to be sharp. Everyone that is, CTM strong. What is CTM strong, by the way? Conquering the markets over here. Conquering the market strong. People who invest their time wisely, who watch what we do each and every day. Now, some people just want the cliff notes. They just tell me what happens. That's not how it works. You have to understand the investment. You have to understand your risk. If it takes me, right, who I believe on top of my game, over 20 years experience, before, had already, anyway, I spend and invest my time with all of you. If you're not doing the same, you're just not CTM strong. That's okay. You don't have, it's your choices, right? But that's what it takes. Am I going to tell everyone it's going to be quick and it's going to be sharp? There's no need to, right? I talked about that once we got neutral and this happened. I told everyone this is the most important trend line in crypto. And until that breaks, things are unclear. Once that breaks, the momentum's going to return. Now, we also at the same time, right, we didn't do anything over here. And there are a lot of people trading both ways over here. And we just stayed out of the murkiness until we broke this line of repair. And then we mentioned, listen, this happens to be the first line of repair. And then price went on and it made this wedge over here. And then we talked about this very clearly ahead of time, not after. And it wasn't all this. It was the only times that we acted. And then as price broke out, retested, we were all over it, right? But is it going to be sharp and is it going to be a V? If you're there's not one person in CTM who's not aware of the possibility, right? But at the same time, we have the collective model over here, the work that Ted has done, absolutely beautiful over here. And this is just looking at past cycles. We're not projecting what's going to happen in the future because we don't know. But by lining this up with what happened in the past, looking at it from different angles and vantage points, we know where the most likely path is and what we project it to be and where. We're not going about this by the time we get to 2025, we're going to be at $1 million Bitcoin, right? Well, I don't even know. I hope the lengthening cycles of guys are there, right? But we're trying to make sure that we see the waves and are able to ride the waves. We'll see. We don't know. Again, John, the bears could attack once they get to the most important trend line in crypto, right? So when we talk about the bulls and the bears, we're talking about, over here as price is rising, the bulls are running. The bulls are in control. Price is going up. When you talk about over here, the bears won this battle, you could see price going down. Bearish moves is when there's a lot of selling, right? A bear market is when you have a prolonged downtrend. This is a bear market. Now it's different in Bitcoin. I'm sorry. I should have been like this. This is a bear market over here, right? Yeah, the previous bear markets in Bitcoin have all ended in capitulation. It could be different this time. Maybe we don't get a blow off top. As we look at what happened mid-cycle, that was not a blow off top. That was a 3-month rounding top of exhaustion, right? This cycle, seemingly, we didn't get a capitulation. Now, I talked about in this area over here that a lot of people had capitulated mentally. Do you remember that tweet I put out? It was just a week ago, and I told you I'm seeing mentally everyone capitulate because they're now talking about much lower numbers. They've given up this 2 months, this 3 months of sideways price action. It won. It got a lot of people, right? So those are the bulls of the bears over there. John, again, big shout out. TJ, will I sell some of my Bitcoins if the bears are able to hold over here at the most important trend line in crypto? Right? Absolutely not. My strategy is not to sell my Bitcoin during the bull market phase. I said that before, as I fully positioned in half my net worth Oh, but and if you weren't in a rush because you thought that Bitcoin, that $20,000 was rich in 2021, then most likely you weren't putting half your net worth, including owned real estate, into Bitcoin, right? Why would you do that if you didn't have a model and you didn't follow the 4-year cycle? Where every 210,000 blocks, that the miner's reward is cut in half, sending a supply shock into Bitcoin. But if you're following a model like that, maybe you got lucky up until now. I wouldn't sell over here, TJ, and I won't sell to the cycle peak. If I'm selling Bitcoin, it's at the cycle peak. Otherwise, I'm not selling and I'm holding. My plan has not changed. The only thing that changed was after price came off 50%, I bought the dip. And I let everyone know that I bought the dip. When I bought the dip, and those 2 purchases. So I would not be selling if the bears take control over here because I'm holding my Bitcoin. Now there are other people out there who, live in, someplace maybe like the Netherlands where they don't have to pay tax, trading in and out of Bitcoin. Or maybe some people are doing it in a Roth IRA on GBTC and they're not paying, and their time preference is a lot different. Right now, my time preference and trading was a lot different when Bitcoin broke out to the bull market over here in July, right? Breakout, retest, resumption, and this whole period over here when I was trading Bitcoin, then I was trading in and out of Bitcoin. That's different than my spot position. My spot position, I'm holding, and TJ, I'm not trading over here. I'm not trading again until we break the most important trend line in crypto and have that momentum again. I stopped trading. Remember when I said it was May the 14th? I said things are very unclear. Get neutral. People thought I sold my spot Bitcoin, and I said no. I'm not going to sell my spot until the cycle peak. Nevertheless, I am no longer trading, and that was a huge, enormous run, right? A huge, enormous run. So I'll start trading again when I break outside the most important trend line in crypto. So TJ, I hope that's helpful. Brent, Bitcoin has one bullish day and everyone thinks it's going to the moon. It's a big bull trap. If there's a correction in the stock market, the weekends who bought yesterday will sell to the institution. Brent, you should follow what's going on over here. We covered this stuff over a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, we were covering what would happen if the stock market corrected. I'm sure you remember, Brent, what happened in 2020 in October and September when the stock market corrected massively, right? 10% correction, and then Bitcoin was up 20%. And I told everyone, first quarter 2021, watch out because Bitcoin's going to break all correlations. And break them it did, as it went from $20,000 to $60,000 in a matter of months, right? And I also said, and a year and a half ago, Brent, wait and watch until the third quarter 2021. Then Bitcoin's really going to break all correlations, right? Unless there's some type of crisis in the system, systematic crisis, where things are actually broken, right? And by the way, if that happens, what happens? Obviously, the Fed's playbook is to act quick and act massively. What happens to Bitcoin, from that reaction? Right? So, but if you think that the stock market, if the stock market corrects, that means that Bitcoin's going to correct as Bitcoin's doing Bitcoin things, I don't think so. So, and Matt, what are my thoughts on the log growth curve maxing out at $120,000 later this year? Why? You're looking at Bitcoin adoption being under 1 billion users very early and outpacing, as of this year, the growth of the internet, in comparison from where it was in its cycle. We are not close to the bell curve of that adoption of Bitcoin. I don't think that, again, I've been very clear about this cycle being way too soon to see any type of diminishing returns or lengthening cycle that we will see as Bitcoin adoption really takes foot in the future. Whether or not it's next cycle or the cycle after that, I don't know. That's way too far in advance for me to be hanging out. But 120, Matt, anything's possible. If that happened, it would be under my, let's say, my base case. My base case is, $160,000. That's diminishing returns. And that would be 140,000. I'll make sure all that my goals were accomplished. if we only reach $120,000, I would not have accomplished all my goals that I set out to accomplish, ahead of this bull market cycle, right? And would that mean that I would be selling? Would that mean that I would be holding, right? I mean, most likely, Matt, I would just continue holding. Am I going to hold from $120,000 for an 85% drawdown? I have to tell you, there was a time, because again, it's a question about whether or not you're getting started today or not. I got started, obviously a having a go. I'm ahead of someone starting out today, but my one of my goals was to get my balance from my position up where I could withstand a bear market 85% drawdown, right? And if you look at price at 64,500 and we have an 85% drawdown and it takes us back towards $9,700, that's higher than my average buy-in, right? So I feel good about that today, but that didn't come easy, right? I did a lot of planning, I did a lot of work, and I put in a lot of time and work with you each and every day. So a lot of people might be like, oh, well, good for you. You could, you got in early and now you could withstand the 85% draw. Well, I worked for that. I worked really hard for that. And most of all, I had to put in the time, And if we saw $120,000 on Bitcoin and we had an 85% drawdown and takes us down to $18,000, right? Below the last cycle high, that would be higher than usual, Matt. That's a hard case for me to make, that Bitcoin would trade below if going up to 100, assuming we broke the most important trend line in crypto here and went to $120,000 and then, came into a bear market and traded below the last cycle, that would be something different. It's the markets, anything could happen, but that would definitely not be my base case of that happening. And yeah, if that happened without a blow off top into $120,000, obviously if we had a multi-month rounding top, I would be much more aware for it. But there's a good chance that I would have to be holding through all of that, and then I would have to be looking for what I perceive to be the bottom of the bear market, right? It might be different this time then. Instead of, each bear market past cycles has lasted 12 months and 2 weeks. And they all ended with a capitulation. If we saw something drastically different on the top, I would have to be looking for something drastically different on the bottom. And that might mean that we don't have an 85% drawdown then. Maybe this time, since we had such a drastically diminishing return, that we would be looking for something like, a 60% drawdown on the downside on the bear market. Again, not my base case though, because we saw over here, a 53% drawdown during what I perceive to be, and have from the beginning to be mid-cycle. So if we saw, a bear market form and price only come off 60%, it's not something that would be my base case or that I believe is going to take place. Did we crush it today? Did we do what we came here to do, right? Did Ethereum bull run last as long as Bitcoin? We didn't check in. By the way, let's check in on Ethereum Bitcoin really quick, right? And look, this arrow here is incomplete. The base case is that we break down over here. That's the base case, is that informing this descending triangle, which normally breaks bullish. And if this does break bullish, then we have what is a new characteristic occurring here between Ethereum and Bitcoin. But if you looked at what happened mid-cycle, exactly where we are today, back 4 years earlier, this same pattern was developing and it broke to the downside before then setting up the second alt season. So everything's right on time. This is one of the things that helped me have the awareness I have, right? That we've shared so long and so strong here, is understanding what happened with past cycles at this particular time, right? This could set up the second alt season, right? If price breaks down over here, that's a good indication, strong indication that we're going to be seeing the second alt season peak. If you look at back what happened going back into 2017, let me pull it up for you. 2018, where are we? 2017, here you go. So forget don't forget it, but forget that little peak. This was a much stronger first alt season than it was this particular year. Bitcoin dominance continues to grow. If you take out stable coins, if you take out like fake projects, Bitcoin's dominance is a lot stronger than it was 4 years ago. But here's that descending triangle, and it broke down, and then it set up that second alt season. There are two alt seasons. We said this way before the first alt season peaked. We said that going into the bull market, before the halving event, going back years now, said, listen, after the 2020 halving event, approximately 6 months after will be the beginning of alt season. There was this November, this December, it happened right on time. And as it was happening, we let everyone know it was happening. And then as this alt season peaked, the week, 4 days before it peaked, I let everyone know, hey, watch out. Ethereum was running strong. I said, right now, this week could be the peak of this first alt season. It was 4 days later, right? So those that are putting in the work and those that are paying attention, right, they got the clearest signal that there is. What happens from here? If we break out to the upside, something's different, right? Watch out for that. It's very clear and easy to know when that's happening. Most of the time, this is a continuation pattern that breaks to the upside. If it doesn't this time, and remember back in what was different, I'm thinking in my head right now about 2018 Bitcoin when we put on this several month, descending triangle. And that's when it broke down from $6,000 was the floor, and it broke down all the way to 3,200 capitulation. We'll see what happens. We're watching this. That's important. But I think you were talking about Ethereum, right? We set up and we talked about way before the halving that we expect Ethereum to outperform Bitcoin during the bull market phase. Now, Bitcoin outperforms Ethereum during the bear market phase, as we enter 2022. Again, I think it's going to be a down year. But what happens the rest of this cycle? Ian has put out some really strong work showing the correlation between Ethereum and Bitcoin this year, which is a lot different than it was 4 years ago. Before you saw Ethereum moving a few week difference than Bitcoin. Don't forget, Bitcoin cycle peak was about 2 weeks before Ethereum cycle peak. This cycle, they both seem to be a lot more correlated in their moves, with Ethereum outperforming. When Bitcoin goes into correction, Ethereum also does. But Ethereum, up until this last move, the correction has been a little bit less. It continues to outperform. What happens the rest of this cycle, right? My base case is that we see this happen, that we see Ethereum break down and Bitcoin outperform during this latter half of the bull market cycle, but that Ethereum has, again, a big alt season into the blow off top. That will be also a confirmation, an affirmation that we are seeing a cycle peak if we have that second alt season occurring, right? Is it possible that this time is different and Ethereum continues just to stay in lockstep with Bitcoin and outperform? That would be a breakout over here to the upside, which is why I have this line over here, which is why I have this arrow here. I'm focused in on what would happen if that were to occur. All right, everyone. I think nevertheless, I want to see what else is going on with some questions. Nice, Jesse. That's some accuracy right there. That would make sense if it was a little bit sooner. Peter, thank you so much. A big shout out to all the moderators, to all of you who add so much each and every day. So grateful for all of you. By the way, it's been 7 weeks now since we've had family visiting us. 7 weeks and a new baby. It's been, next week, as of next Monday, we'll be like on vacation in the sense that we have no more family staying with us, and I'll be like fully devoted to my family here, And thank you for this past, during the summer, these last 7 weeks, as things have been. Can you imagine, 6th kid having a baby and at the same time having family with you? Well, it's been beautiful, but as of next Monday, I'm going to be hyper focused. Not that I'm not always, right? Joseph. Steve, big shout out to you, brother. DXY, we'll look at it. It's holding the breakout right in right now. You can see that good look at it. This is the neckline over here of the inverse head and shoulders. There's the left shoulder, right shoulder, the head, the neckline, the breakout, and it's coming in from retest. We're going to jump down into a candle on the 8 hour just to give you a look over there, and you can see what's coming into that retest right now. You know, this is why this is amazing. You have the perfect opportunity to manage your risk as you come into this line. And you had a resumption off right over here on the 8 hour time frame. You have the retest already of the neckline and a resumption off. That's a great entry for a lot of people, for everyone. And you can see that we never made the higher high yet, and we're coming back in for a retest, right? So we said, or I said very clearly and multiple times, that for me, it's a break of that support over here, which would say that you're wrong on this trade. You know, so your stop loss, I assume, is right under there. Listen, if we come back down and take out that low, are you getting out earlier? Not if you set your stop loss down over here, right? Respect it. As before you go into the trade, you know where you're wrong on the trade because of where you're managing your risk. You know the position side of your trade. You know, this has a little bit of room here to figure out what's going to happen. It's below this line of support that I think this is a failure, right? And then we have what? Neutral again with weakness, with a weak bias. All right, so we'll check in tomorrow. But right now you're just coming in for a retest on the DXY, right? Markets are basically doing nothing over here. S&P 500 barely unchanged. Nasdaq barely unchanged. Yields are showing that strong extension downwards. You had the breakdown, the retest, the resumption down. Now coming, they have to get back above this trend line just to go neutral. And it's a breakout over here that would send yields back running high. And if they do, that will be explosive for Bitcoin. If by the end, within the next 6 months, or I should say within the next 3 or 4 months, yields break over here above this line, Bitcoin is going to be a super, 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 super strong cycle peak in 2021. Now, if that doesn't happen, right, that's not the base case for anyone. I say that with a smile, right? But listen, if that doesn't happen, Bitcoin is still going to do Bitcoin things. Now, we might be on the lower range than on the higher range if that's occurring, right? But if that is occurring, we could potentially be towards that higher end of the range. All right, fam. Thanks for spending the time. Thanks for blowing up the like buttons today. You know, and you know, we're gonna do it again tomorrow. Love. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and I'll see you all again tomorrow as we do it again.